All right, let's jump right into this explainer and, honestly, completely shatter how we normally look at the history of humanity. Usually, we're taught to read history as this straightforward timeline of isolated individuals, right? Kings rising, empires falling, lone geniuses inventing things in their garages. But today, we're going to explore a radical new framework from author Ryan McLean that flips that entirely on its head.
I want you to zoom way, way out for a second. Imagine looking at thousands of years of human existence, not as a chaotic collection of disconnected people, but as a single, connected, living body. Think about your own body for just a moment. Your cells are born and die every single day, yet you remain the exact same person. You've got a brain that remembers, an immune system that repairs, and a heart that keeps things flowing. Well, what if humanity functions in the exact same way?
Historically, we've really leaned on this great man theory of history, a view where random, brilliant people just make things happen out of nowhere. But through this new lens, history is actually the unfolding of one distributed network. You aren't just an isolated individual. You are literally a vital node in a massive living network that receives, remembers, and transmits information across time.
Section 1. History as one organism, a single living network. So, if history really is one giant organism, that means every person, every institution, and every culture is just a local node in a much larger field. When one person learns something, or when a culture develops a new tool, they aren't doing it in a vacuum. They're acting as a piece of this much larger puzzle.
The author uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor of a slime mold to show how this network actually grows. Now, a slime mold is a completely brainless organism, yet it can perfectly map out highly efficient transport networks, just by spreading out, finding food, strengthening the paths that work, and pruning the dead ends. And human civilizations, we do the exact same thing. We explore, we find what works, we build roads and laws and institutions to strengthen those paths, and we abandon the ideas that fail. We are one giant living network discovering its own structure.
Moving on to Section 2, Unlocking the Adjacent Possible, Reaching New States. So, if we're all part of this expanding network, how do major historical breakthroughs actually happen?
The absolute crucial concept here is accessibility. It's the exact historical moment when enough underlying dependencies are present that a new state can be reached. Whenever you look at a major breakthrough, you always have to ask yourself, what had to exist before this became possible? Think about the telephone. It wasn't just waiting around in the ether because humans were lazy. It wasn't historically accessible until we had metallurgy, electricity, factories, and wire production. The finish line didn't just magically move. The human organism finally reached it.
Think of history like a massive video game filled with locked doors. You can stand in front of the door and yell at it all day long, but it's not going to open until you've collected enough keys. Or, think of it like trying to build a giant Lego castle when you only have 3 bricks and a potato. It's impossible. Breakthroughs like the telephone, or even complex societal ideas like secularism, couldn't just pop into existence out of thin air. We had to collect the dependencies first. And the really fascinating part? Once those keys are collected, anyone can cross the threshold. This is exactly why different inventors often discover the exact same thing at the exact same time. The network simply became ready.
When you step back and look at the macroscopic shape of this whole dependency model, you see a single, beautiful network of memory and coherence. Ideas spread, they get compressed into memory, and they open new doors. The genius inventor? They're really just the visible pop-up marker, but the entire organism had been dragging the pieces into place for generations.
Section 3. Expanding our nervous system. Technology as nerves. Now, every living body needs a way to send signals, right? And technology fits into this model not just as a random collection of tools, but as the literal, physical expansion of the human organism's nervous system.
Let's trace this back. 5,000 years ago, writing allowed our memory to survive beyond just a single lifetime. Fast forward to 600 years ago, the printing press massively increased our replication bandwidth. Then the telegraph allowed signals to literally outrun human bodies. The internet, it created persistent global connectivity. With every single step forward, we radically increased the signaling bandwidth of our collective human body. We are literally growing bigger, faster nerds.
And looking through this framework, AI isn't some sci-fi alien brain arriving from Mars. Not at all. It's simply our own accumulated human archive. Our books, our arguments, our jokes, our code, waking up and becoming conversational. It is the organism's externalized memory, now fully able to recursively search and summarize itself.
Section 4, Preventing the Network Fracture, Maintaining Coherence. Because look, a nervous system that carries truth lightning fast can also carry panic and disorder just as quickly. So what actually happens locally when one node disappears or decides to fight back?
The answer to that is fracture. Fracture is a catastrophic loss of flow event. Imagine a huge family trying to build an epic blanket fort in the living room. It only works if everyone cooperates, right? But if one person hides the tape, and someone else lies about having the pillows, and another person just starts kicking down chairs, the whole structure collapses. A lack of trust, lies, and unresolved arguments eventually cause the entire structure of the human organism to fracture, simply because the flow of cooperation is destroyed.
So, to prevent constantly collapsing its own blanket forts, the organism has to rely on a deeply rational objective order. As the brilliant mathematician Kurt Gödel observed, the world is rational. The network has to consistently orient itself toward things that preserve life and actively away from things that destroy it.
Which brings us to Section 5, the long-term coherence engine, preserving the grammar. If we're this one massive organism that's prone to fracturing, what actually stops the network from constantly tearing itself apart over thousands of years? How on earth does it maintain coherence?
Gödel also had this great observation where he essentially said, the more I think about language, the more it amazes me that people ever understand each other at all. And it really is a miracle of shared understanding. That shared understanding transitions us right into the concept of morality, because morality isn't just a boring list of arbitrary rules, it's the actual glue of civilization.
This is because morality, even when you completely strip away the purely religious framing, actually functions biologically as a coherence engine. Truthfulness, it's required to preserve data integrity across the network. Fidelity stabilizes long-term connections, so we can actually build things that last. And forgiveness? Forgiveness is the ultimate network repair mechanism. It literally stops the cycle of retaliation that would otherwise cause the organism to consume itself. Morality is the grammar that keeps the human blanket fort from tearing apart.
Gödel also noted that mathematical objects and facts exist entirely objectively, and this bridges a truly fascinating gap in the author's model. If there is an objective grammar to the universe, how has the human organism historically preserved it? Now, the author proposes a very specific and fascinating answer to this. They argue that the Catholic Church actually operates as the ultimate long-term coherence organ for the human organism. Within this specific framework, apostolic succession is viewed as a way to preserve original data across millennia. Confession isn't just a personal thing. It acts as systematic node repair to fix network damage. Councils exist to resolve fragmentation whenever the network threatens to fork. And liturgy serves to powerfully compress centuries of vital memory into a repeatable format, so humanity doesn't have to start from absolute zero every single generation.
So, what's the ultimate goal of all of this? The technology, the morality, the coherence engines? It's dynamic equilibrium. Think of an orchestra. You absolutely don't want the violins to sound exactly like the drums. You want them to be entirely different instruments, but playing one unified, beautiful song. Dynamic equilibrium is all about achieving total unity and flow across the human organism without erasing our beautiful individual differences. We aren't supposed to be some gray uniform blob. We're supposed to be a highly differentiated, deeply connected family.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question to chew on. As our technology accelerates and our nervous system expands faster than ever before, what threshold will the human organism cross next? You are a vital, indispensable node in this living, breathing organism of history. Every action you take, every single path you strengthen, and every connection you repair ripples through the entire whole. So what part of the network will you build today?